Hello everybody, how are you doing tonight? Another interesting video that may offend some, but I find it necessary once again. As a Christian, I frequently hear some people pulling Bible verses out saying, oh, well, this is what this means, and this is what this Bible verse this means, and blah, 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 blah. Sometimes I just like, well, whatever, I know that's not what it means. Interpretation is one thing, just getting it wrong is another. One that I frequently hear used on Hard News Network, aka Hard Bastard, and with some other people in response to stuff about grooming and pedophiles and everything, is the better a millstone comment, or biblical verse. Quick bit of internet history. There was a website known as Better a Millstone, which was founded in 1998 by a man by the name of Mike Eccles. I'll let y'all look it up, but suffice to say, the website lasted to 2005 and used the biblical verse from Matthew, Luke, from the Gospels in general, Better a Millstone, as its creed and justification for basically, supposedly being the eyes and ears on the internet for law enforcement against pedophiles and child molesters and sex offenders and blah, 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 blah. A lot of con man bullshit in a lot of ways. But, like I said, look that up yourself. But that's one of the reasons why why that biblical verse is so prominent. But it is one of the least understood verses that I've ever seen. Frequently used to justify, well, we should go after and kill pedophiles because, Jesus said this. You didn't understand the context. You just took that one verse. You didn't understand the whole context. So I'm here in this video to explain the context of what was being said. So we're going to look at Matthew chapter 18. And I'm going to read basically from the King James Version and from partially from the you can call it the Living Bible version, or the easy to understand version, however you wish to put it. So, with this verse, I'm going to read the entire chapter so people will have context. So here, Matthew 18, we're starting at Matthew 18, verse 1. And at the same time came the disciples unto Jesus, saying, Who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? And Jesus called a little child unto him, and set him in the midst of them, and said, Verily I say unto you, except ye be converted and become as little children, ye cannot enter into the kingdom of heaven. That is verse 3. Verse 4. Whosoever shall humble himself as this little child, the same is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. And whoso shall receive one such little child in my name receiveth me. Now, verse 6. But whoso shall offend one of these little ones which believe in me, it were be better for him that a millstone were hanged about his neck and he were drowned in the depth of the sea. Now, it goes on from here. Verse 7. Woe unto the world because of offenses, for it must needs be that offenses come, but woe to that man by whom the offense cometh. Now, I'm going to interpret this through the Living Bible interpretation. This is standard English. Woe to the world because of its stumbling blocks. For it is inevitable that stumbling blocks come, but woe to the man through whom the stumbling block comes. And another version, the AMP version. Woe, judgment is coming to the world because of stumbling blocks and temptations to sin. It is inevitable that stumbling blocks come, but woe to the person on whose account or through whom the stumbling block comes. Now, this continues on into some other well-known verses. Wherefore, if thy hand or foot offend thee, cut them off and cast them from thee. For it is better for thee to enter into life, into everlasting life, or into heaven, halt or maimed, rather than have 2 hands or 2 feet and be cast into hell, or everlasting fire. If thy eye offend thee, pluck it out and cast it from thee. It is better to enter into eternal life, heaven, with one eye rather than having two eyes and be cast into hell. Verse 10, take heed that ye despise not one of these little ones, for I say unto you that in heaven their angels do always behold the face of my Father which is in heaven. Okay, so what does that mean? What does all of that mean? This is the context. Jesus was sitting and giving a sermon, and the disciples, feeling a little jealous, basically questioning their faith and things, come to Jesus and say, okay, Jesus, who's the greatest in heaven? If you're preaching about, going to heaven and everything, who's going to be the greatest when we get up there? And Jesus asked a child to come over and he says, this is the greatest in heaven. And they were like, what? What does that mean? Simple. Children have unwavering faith. Just like children believe in Santa Claus, the Tooth Fairy, the Easter Bunny. They don't question. They just have this beautiful unwavering faith. You have to have the faith of a child if you want to get into heaven. That was what he was saying. The greatest in heaven will be the ones who have the greatest, easiest faith. Almost blindly faithful, you might say. That's what he was telling them. Now, in the verse about the millstones, what he is saying is that if you are a person who attempts to cause people to pull away from God, to tempt them to sin, and you purposely do so, not, I didn't realize I was tempting that person to sin or to turn away from God. No, if you are purposely trying to get people to sin, to turn away from God, however, whether you use force, persuasion, manipulation, whatever it is, if you are that type of person, it would be better that you just die a horrible death before God's wrath comes down upon you. That's it. That is it. The rest of the verses that I read speak about offense. In other words, if somebody says something to you that offends you, woe betide the person who's doing things, creating offenses that anger you and cause you to pull away from God. Because eventually it's going to catch up to that person. And the person who is causing the offense, the person who is causing this harm, is going to get in a lot of trouble. In other words, you would rather just kill yourself or have someone else kill you in a horrible way, because God's wrath is going to be 10 times worse. And God doesn't kill you right off the bat when you piss him off. He makes you suffer sometimes before he does it. But it's God. No argument there for me. So now, with interpretation, can we interpret this to mean, God hates pedophiles, or Jesus hated pedophiles, or Jesus believed that pedophiles needed to be punished? You could argue that if you want, but the problem is context and interpretation are two different things in some ways. Context is, here is the whole thing. Interpretation is, I think it means this. Now, could you interpret that and say, this means God doesn't like pedophiles? Yeah, you could. It would still be wrong. Not saying that God likes pedophiles or child molestation or child sexual abuse or anything like that. What I'm saying is that you trying to use this to justify hurting pedophiles or child molesters or whatever, that's not your place, for one. One of the interpretations of the verses about offense is that, look, if this person is being offensive to God, let God handle it. You step out of the way. Don't get in between God and his wrath on some jackass. If you know this guy is courting God's wrath, step out the way and let God handle him. That's another interpretation. But ultimately, the real understanding of the verse about the millstone is about trying to keep people away from God. So if you do it through manipulation, threats of force, or bringing harm, you're a bad person. If you do it to whether it be a child or to an adult, you're a bad person and you're going to piss God off. Especially if this person is actively trying to get closer to God and you're actively trying to find ways to draw them away from God, to push them away from God. Another interpretation, I should say. The priest who molests a choir boy. The choir boy, then angered by what has happened to him, decides he doesn't want anything else to do with God. That priest is in deep doo-doo with the big almighty. If you use molestation of children and sexualization of children to pull them away from God, you are in deep doo-doo. Doesn't matter if you're a priest, teacher, or an average ordinary person. You are in deep doo-doo. And that is the main thing about these verses. It isn't about going out and throwing pedophiles into the sea. It is about being wary of offending people, God, and bringing harm to those who wish to follow God, hindering them, causing them to stumble, causing them to sin. If you are a person who is going out and trying to get followers of Christ, followers of God, to sin, then you are a stumbling block. You are a temptation to sin, and this offends God highly because you know what you're doing is wrong. It isn't a matter of, gosh, I didn't know. No, you are purposely going out and causing harm, causing people to stray from the path, stray from faith. So yeah, God's pissed, and it's going to come fuck you up. But it would be better if you just somehow died in a horrible fashion before God got a hold of you. Okay, can't argue with that. Can't argue with that one at all. But I really just wanted to put forward what the truth of that verse is, because I see so many people using it incorrectly. And I say, part of me says, well, if you're ignorant, that's fine. I don't care. Then there's another part of me, the Christian part of me, that just gets so irritated by it. Like, why? Why can't you just, look up what the verse says. Look up that entire chapter in the Bible. Just look it up. For those of you who don't know what that entire chapter is, let me say it again. That entire chapter is Matthew 18. It's also, I think, it could be Luke 18 or 16 or something like that. But you'll find it throughout all of the Gospels. So that is about it for that. If you have questions or doubts about what I'm saying, you can look things up if you want. Or, leave a question or comment in the comment section. This is going to be posted both on YouTube and on BitChute. So please like, rate, subscribe, comment to my channel. Help spread the word. Help share this video to help out people who don't seem to freaking know what the Bible actually says about certain things. Just help a brother out. Help a brother out. All right, then. Everybody take care and have a blessed day. Or, well, in this case right now, blessed night.